Dr. Servatius, you still have the testimony by Slawik, right?
Jawohl.
Ken? Jawohl. Yes. President of Court, which passages, sir, would you like to have read out from this testimony?
Es ist die Aussage von Slawik vom 6. Juli 1961 vor dem Landgericht in Wien.
Slavik's testimony dated the 6th of June 1961 before the court in Vienna.
Der Zeuge sagt auf Seite 1 zu Frage 1, ich war von April 44 bis ungefähr November 44 in Budapest, Apostelstraße am Rosenberg, in der Villa Aschner als Hausmeister, besser gesagt als Hausdiener bei Eichmann tätig.
Witness says on page 1, in answer to question number 1, I was, as from April 44 to November 44, in Budapest, on the Apostel Street in Rosenberg, in the Rose Hill, in the Aschner Villa, as steward or housekeeper by Eichmann.
Zur Frage 2. Mir ist nichts bekannt oder bekannt geworden, dass während meiner Tätigkeit bei Eichmann auf dem Grundstück der Villa Aschner in der Apostelstraße ein jüdischer Junge geschlagen oder erschlagen worden wäre. Ich kann mich heute nicht mehr erinnern, ob es im April oder im Mai 44 war, dass ich in Wien 10 bis 14 Tage auf Urlaub war. Mir ist auch nach meiner Rückkehr von einem derartigen Vorfall nichts bekannt geworden.
In answer to question 2, the witness answers, I did not know and did not hear about any case where a young Jewish boy was beaten up or beaten to death during the time I served Eichmann on the grounds of the Aschner Villa on Apostel Street in Vienna. Today I cannot remember if in May or in April 44 I had 10 to 14 days leave which I spent in Vienna. After my return I also heard nothing about such an occurrence. On the same page,
ständig wohnten in der Villa Aschner außer Eichmann und mir noch das ungarische Hausmeister-Ehepaar, Name nicht mehr erinnerlich, eine Bedienerin namens Janka und der Kraftfahrer von Eichmann namens Karl Böhm. Nach unserem Einzug in die Villa wohnten dann auch noch 2 weitere Kraftfahrer von Eichmann, jedoch kann ich mich nur mehr an den Namen Teitel erinnern. Der Name des 3. Kraftfahrers ist mir nicht mehr erinnerlich. Zur Zeit des Putsches der ungarischen Pfeilkreuzler, Zeitpunkt nicht mehr erinnerlich, wohnten in dieser Villa die SS-Führer Abromeit, Wisliceni, Nowak, Dannecker, Girzig und der Regierungsrat Hunsche.
In answer to question 3, a question put by the defense, the answer is usually, besides myself at the Villa Aschner, there was a couple, Hungarian couple, housekeepers, I do not remember the name, a servant by the name of Janka, and a driver, Karl Böhm. Later, after we moved into the villa, there were 2 additional drivers. I can remember only the name title. The name of the 3rd driver I cannot remember. During the putsch in Hungary by the Arrow Cross men, I cannot remember when this took place, in the villa there lived Abromeit, Wisliceni, Novak, Dannecker, Girzig and the state councillor Hunsche.
Teitel durfte Ende April 1944 von der Waffen-SS zu Eichmann mit einem Schwimmwagen als Kraftfahrer gekommen sein. Er war ein Volksdeutscher aus Ungarn. Teitel wurde im Juni oder Juli 1944 wegen eines in Budapest an einer alten Frau begangenen Mordes, wie ich gehört habe, vor ein SS-Gericht gestellt und soll erschossen worden sein.
In answer to question 4, it seems that Teitel arrived and began his service with Eichmann at the end of April 44 from the Waffen-SS with an amphibious car. He was a Volksdeutscher from Hungary. In June or July 44, Teitel was tried for the murder of an old woman committed in Budapest before an SS court, as I heard, and it seems that he was killed by shooting.
Zu Frage 5. Es dürfte im Mai 1944 gewesen sein, dass im Garten der Villa 2 gedeckte Deckungslöcher angelegt wurden. Zur Villa Aschner gehörte noch ein Garten, der vom Garten der Villa durch eine kleine Gasse getrennt war. Auch in diesem Garten wurden Luftschutzgräben ausgehoben, glaublich für die Bewohner der umliegenden Villen.
In answer to question 5, this must have been in May 44, when in the garden of the villa 2 ditches were dug. To the Aschner villa there belonged also a garden which was separated from the villa by a small lane. In this garden as well there were anti-aircraft ditches. It seems that these for the inhabitants of the nearby villas.
Von einem jüdischen Ingenieur mit jüdischen Arbeitern durchgeführt. Ich selbst hatte mit diesen Arbeiten überhaupt nichts zu tun.
In answer to question 6, these works were carried out by a Jewish engineer with Jewish workers. I myself had nothing to do with these works.
Frage 7. Mir ist von Beschwerden über Obstdiebstähle nichts bekannt.
In answer to question 7, any complaints about the stealth of fruit was unknown to me.
Auf der 6. Seite zu Frage 9 und 10 der Staatsanwaltschaft. Im Garten der Villa Aschner haben ungarische Juden gearbeitet, die von der Kultusgemeinde gestellt wurden.
In answer to questions 9 and 10 put by the prosecution, in the garden of the Aschner villa, Hungarian Jews were working. They were supplied by the Jewish community.
In der Villa selbst wurden keine Arbeiten durchgeführt, nur in den beiden Gärten wurden die erwähnten Luftschutzanlagen errichtet. Ich glaube, dass der Ingenieur der Kultusgemeinde, der die Luftschutzbauten durchzuführen hatte, Kohlbach geheißen hat. Diesem Ingenieur oblag die Durchführung und Aufsicht der Arbeiten. Einen Ingenieur Böhring kenne ich nicht.
In answer to questions 11 to 14, in the villa itself, no anti-aircraft ditches were dug, only in the 2 gardens these anti-aircraft cover were prepared. I believe that the name of the engineer sent by the community council to carry out these works was Kohlbach. This engineer was assigned to supervise and to carry out this work. An engineer by the name of Böhring is unknown to me.
Karl Böhm war der ständige Fahrer Eichmanns. Dann hatte Eichmann noch 2 Kraftfahrer, den Teitel und einen SS-Unterscharführer, dessen Namen ich nicht mehr weiß.
לשאלה 15,
In answer to question 15, Karl Böhm was Eichmann's regular driver. He had two more drivers, one by the name of Titel, another SS Unterscharführer, whose name I do not remember.
Auf Seite 7 unten zu Fragen 21 bis 28 sagt er, kann ich keine Angaben machen, da mir darüber nichts bekannt. Ich habe nie einen Befehl zur Bestrafung von Obstdieben erhalten. Ich habe nie eine Person einen Raum der Villa eingesperrt. Eine Gerätekammer in der Villa ist mir überhaupt nicht bekannt. Der Garten wurde von dem ungarischen Hausmeister gepflegt. Ich weiß aber nicht, wo dieser seine Arbeitsgeräte aufbewahrt hatte. Mir ist nichts bekannt, dass Eichmann eine Person oder einen jungen Salomon misshandelt hätte.
On page 7, at the end of the page, in answer to questions 21 to 28, I can give no details because I know nothing about this case. I never received an order to punish a pilferer of fruit. I have never shut a person in a room in the villa. A tool shed, I do not know about a tool shed in the villa. In the garden, the caretaker was an Hungarian man, but I do not know where he kept his tools. I do not know of any case where Eichmann mishandled a man or a youth by the name of Salomon.
Auf der 8. Seite zu Fragen 29 bis 31. Mir ist nichts bekannt, dass einer der jüdischen Arbeiter beschuldigt worden wäre, versucht zu haben, ein ungarisches Kind zu vergewaltigen. Ich habe keine jüdischen Arbeiter gehabt und waren nur zur Errichtung der Luftschutzanlagen jüdische Arbeiter im Garten. Weitere Angaben kann ich nicht machen, da mir darüber nichts bekannt ist.
I know nothing, as though one of the Jewish laborers was accused of assaulting an Hungarian child. I did not have any Jewish workers, and Jews were employed only in the garden for the digging of these anti-aircraft ditches. Further details I cannot give because I know nothing about this matter. These are the quotations I beg to call the attention of the court.
President of Court, the Attorney General, do you have any comments, sir? Mr. Hausner, perhaps we should like to point only to a certain section on page 2. I was with Eichmann in a period between April 1944 and November 1944, approximately. I was employed only in the Villa Aschner in the Apostle Street as a butler. I belonged to the SS, and my rank was that of Oberscharführer. President of Court, I have marked the Slawik testimony with the Roman numeral 16. Now, what we have left is in connection with...
Your Honor, may I put one question?
Bei der Vernehmung des Angeklagten als Zeuge. Und es war damals vorbehalten, wenn sich daraus noch eine Frage ergeben sollte, dass sie noch an den Angeklagten gestellt werden könnte.
Your Honor, this testimony was not in my hands when I questioned the accused as a witness. It was agreed that if further evidence is submitted, I may be permitted to pose questions to the accused.
Dass ich noch 2 oder 3 Fragen hierzu an den Angeklagten richte als Zeuge.
I beg to be permitted to put 2 or 3 further questions to the accused now. President of Court, Mr. Hausner, what do you say?
Mr. Hausner, I have no objection.
President of Court, then you may do so, Dr. Sabatius. Now to the accused. You are requested by your defense to answer a number of questions, and your answers are still under oath.
The accused? Jawohl.
Okay. Dr.
Sie haben auf Befragen erklärt, dass Sie sich des Namens Title nicht erinnerten. Wie lange ist Title bei Ihnen gewesen? Gehörte er zu Ihrem Kommando? Wann ist er gekommen und wann ist er weggegangen?
You said in answer to a question that you cannot recall the name Title. How long was Title in your service? Was he one of your command? When did he arrive and when did he leave?
An einen Namensträger Title kann ich mich auch heute noch nicht erinnern. Aber als ich gestern Abend hiervon gehört habe, da ist es mir in Erinnerung gewesen, das heißt, habe ich mich erinnert, dass mit dem Schwimmwagen ein Fahrer der Waffen-SS gekommen ist. Und genauso wie ich den Schwimmwagen leihweise erhielt von einem Beschaffungsamt der Waffen-SS, so ist der Fahrer kommandiert worden. Der ist kommandierungshalber vereinnahmt worden durch das Personalamt des Befehlshabers der Personalabteilung des Befehlshabers der Sicherheitspolizei des SD und ist alsbald kurze Zeit wieder verschwunden. Ich weiß nicht, wie lange er bei mir gewesen ist. Es kann sich gefühlsmäßig vielleicht auf einen Monat, vielleicht auf 6 Wochen, vielleicht auch weniger erstrecken. Ich weiß es nicht. Der Mann gehörte nicht zur Polizei und gehörte damit auch nicht zu meiner Dienststelle, auch nicht zur Dienststelle des Befehlshabers der Sicherheitspolizei, der ich hier unterstellt war.
Not even today can I recall the name of a man by the name of Title, but now that I've heard of it, I was told about this last night, I recall that when I received this amphibious vehicle, there came along a driver from the Waffen-SS, and just as the amphibious vehicle was given to me as a loan, so the driver was loaned to me, was sent along by the personnel division of the commander of the security police and the SD. And after a short time, this man disappeared again. I do not know how long this man stayed with me. It may have been a matter of weeks, a month, perhaps 6 weeks, maybe even less. This man was not a policeman, therefore he was also not a member of my unit or a member of the unit of the commander of the security police and the SD, whose subordinate I was.
Im Juni oder Juli 1944 wegen Mordes an einer alten Frau zum Tode verurteilt und erschossen worden sei. Haben Sie von dieser Angelegenheit etwas erfahren?
The testimony that Title was sentenced in June or July 44, was sentenced to death for the murder of an old woman. Did you hear anything about that?
Nein, davon habe ich erst gestern zum ersten Mal gehört. Mir ist nichts in Erinnerung.
No, I've heard about this for the first time yesterday. I cannot remember a thing about it. But I would certainly have remembered it had I heard it.
Wäre das Ihnen nicht mitgeteilt worden, wenn Ihnen noch unterstellt war?
Would it not have come to your notice had he continued to be at your disposal?
Es mir mitgeteilt werden müssen von der SS- und Polizeigerichtsbarkeit und sicherlich wäre ich im Verfahren irgendwie mit gehört worden als Zeuge oder irgendetwas, denke ich mir. Aber er ist mir ja nicht unterstellt gewesen und vielleicht hat er sich, nachdem er bei mir überflüssig geworden ist, er hatte ja nur den Wagen zu überstellen und in Ordnung zu bringen, ist er vielleicht marodierend rumgezogen, aufgegriffen worden und dann verurteilt worden. Ja. Aber wenn ich noch dazu fügen darf, diese Sache ist, glaube ich, insofern sehr einfach, weil der Gerichtsherr sämtlicher SS- und Polizeieinheiten in Ungarn war der höhere SS- und Polizeiführer Winkelmann. Der lebt ja noch. Er muss ja das Urteil bestätigt haben. Und er muss vor allen Dingen auch angeben können, wer denn der SS- und Polizeirichter gewesen ist, der diese Sache führend behandelt hat.
If this man title had been my subordinate, then they would have had to inform me about any such matter. But he was not a member of the police force, and then they would have had to at least inform me. The SS judicial authorities would have told me something about it. Perhaps I would have even appeared as a witness in his case. But all this man had to do was bring me the amphibious vehicle and put it in order, and then he became superfluous. Therefore, it is quite possible that after that he was just roving about in Budapest, and he may have been caught in the act of robbery or something like that. It is a very simple matter, in fact, because the supreme officer in charge of judicial affairs of the SS in Hungary was the senior SS and police commander Winkelmann. He is still alive, and he at the time had to authorize any such judgment, and he would certainly know who the judge was, the SS and police judge who would have dealt with the title case.
Dr. Servatius, I have no more questions.
Mr. Hausner.
I understand that you had 3 drivers in Budapest. President of Court, now you will answer the Attorney General in the same matter. I learned from Slavik's testimony that in Budapest you had 3 drivers at your disposal.
Ja, das stimmt nicht, das ist nicht gut ausgedrückt. Ich hatte, wenn man so will, hatte ich vielleicht 5 oder 6, denn das kam so. Es hatten vielleicht ein halbes Dutzend Leute, waren ausgezeichnete Kraftfahrer gewesen. Und davon nahm ich mal den oder mal den. In der Regel hat sich das dann so herausgestellt und herausgebildet, dass einer an dem Fahrzeug gewöhnt war und dann eben längere Zeit fuhr. Ich hatte nie 3 Kraftfahrer zu gleicher Zeit etwa. Und außerdem kommt dazu, dass ich in der Stadt meistens stets selbst gefahren bin.
The accused. Well, this is not precise, it's not well put. By the same token, one could say that I had 5 or 6 drivers, because it was this way. There was a driver's pool of about half a dozen, and I would choose from time to time a good driver. There were quite a few very good, excellent drivers, and I would select this one or that one. And after some time, one of these drivers would get accustomed to my automobile, and he would then become a more or less permanent driver. But I certainly never had 3 drivers simultaneously. In addition, I would like to point out that during that period I often did my own driving.
Karl Böhm was your regular driver. This is what Slawik says. your
Jawohl, mit
witness?
Böhm fuhr ich wohl die meiste Zeit.
Jawohl, yes. I suppose I rode with Böhm most of the time.
In addition, you had one or two more drivers.
Ja, es gab eigentlich mehrere, mit denen ich gefahren bin. Böhm war derjenige gewesen, wenn ich zum Beispiel nach Wien, Berlin fuhr, diese Strecken fuhr Böhm. Er fuhr, glaube ich, kaum in der Stadt. In der Stadt fuhr ich selber, wie ich gesagt hatte.
כן,
Yes. I suppose the regular driver was Böhm. I did have others, but whenever I went to Vienna or Berlin or any of these longer routes, then Böhm would take the wheel. But in town, he hardly ever drove because there I did my own driving, as I said.
What was the purpose of the amphibious car put at your disposal?
Als ich nach Ungarn kam, hatte ich einen Opel Kapitän und an dem waren laufend Fehler gewesen. Dann hatte ich über Becher gehört, dass ein Beschaffungsamt der SS, ich weiß aber den Namen nicht mehr dieses Amtes, dass dieses Amt Wagen vorrätig hält und vorzugsweise Schwimmwagen. Und ich weiß nicht mehr, wie es im Einzelnen dann kam, jedenfalls durch die Bemühungen Bechers, er bemühte sich sogleich darum, bekam ich den Schwimmwagen mit Fahrer. Und diesen Schwimmwagen, der Fahrer, der rückte dann wieder ab und den Schwimmwagen musste ich glaublich dann auch Ende Sommer wieder abliefern.
כאשר באתי להונגריה, הייתה לי מכונית מסוג אופל.
When I came to Hungary, I had an automobile of the Kapitän model, an Opel. But this had various defects, so then later I heard through Becher that a certain supply bureau of the SS, I don't know what this office was called exactly, that they had a stock of automobiles, particularly amphibious vehicles. I don't know all the details, but I remember that through Becher's efforts, he really put in a lot of effort into this business. I received this amphibious vehicle with a driver. Yes, and the driver then left me again. And I think it was towards the end of the summer when I had to return the amphibious vehicle again.
I assume that amphibious vehicles were earmarked for special purposes for land and sea. That is clear.
Jawohl.
Then why did you require an amphibious vehicle?
Ich hatte keinen Schwimmwagen
Did you use it on the water?
und war an sich, ich erinnere mich heute noch, ich war sehr froh gewesen darum, weil ich einen solchen Wagen noch nie gefahren hatte und hatte mit ihm auch im Gelände meine motorsportlichen, sagen wir mal, Exerzitien durchgeführt. Ich hatte ihn beruflich nicht gebraucht, aber ich bekam ja nichts anderes. Ich konnte es mir nicht aussuchen, welches Fahrzeug ich haben wollte.
לא היה לי בעצם צורך ברכב
I did not need an amphibious vehicle, in fact, but I received it. I still remember that I enjoyed it very much, because I had never driven a car like this before, and I used it for, well, how shall I put it, exercises in motorsport. I did not need it for business purposes, but as I say, I received this type of vehicle and I could do nothing.
You mean to say that you were given amphibious transport when you did not require it at all?
Becher sagte mir, dass mir einen Wagen verschaffen wolle, leihweise. Und so kam es dann zum Schwimmwagen.
That's just how it was. I did not know in advance that I would receive an amphibious car. Becher told me he would obtain some kind of a vehicle for me, and then I received an amphibious vehicle, and although I did not need it.
I take it that the relationship between you and Becher were such that he was ready to go out of his way and obtain a good vehicle for you, as you said.
Persönlich waren die Beziehungen ja nicht abgebrochen zwischen Becher und mir, trotzdem wir sachlich divergierten.
On a personal level, the relations were not broken off between Becher and myself, although we had serious disputes in official matters.
My last question. Is it not strange, in your own eyes, that Slawik knew about Title, that he was caught, accused of murder, sentenced to death, and killed by shooting, whilst you yourself knew nothing about it?
Ja, da frage ich mich, wann hat Slawik denn das erfahren? Und deswegen sagte ich schon, ich weiß es nicht, aber ich habe den Hinweis gegeben. Es dauerte so eine Verhandlung, selbst in jener Zeit, da kann ich mir vorstellen, mindestens 8 oder 14 Tage, bis dass es soweit ist, dass das Urteil vollstreckt wird. Und so eine Sache kann ja nicht irgendwie still und leise unter den Tisch fallen.
Not to mislead you, I want to tell you once again, Slawik says this happened in June or July 44, and that at the time Title was arrested. Is it not strange in your eyes that Slawik knew about the matter and you did not?
Ja, natürlich ist das komisch und auch ungewöhnlich. Denn ich müsste es, wenn Slawik weiß, müsste ich es ja auch wissen, denn es hätte sich herumgesprochen.
So dachte ich mir auch.
Aber weil es sich nicht rumgesprochen hat, deswegen hatte ich darauf hingewiesen, wer der Gerichtsherr in Ungarn war und die SS- und Polizeigerichtsbarkeit. Es stehen diese Stellen ja ohne weiteres zu einer Rückfrage oder Nachforschung zur Verfügung und bereit.
Yes, indeed. When I ask myself, actually, when did Slawik learn of this? I don't know when he found out all about it. Any such court-martial, even in those days, would have had to take between a week and a fortnight until the sentence was carried out. And this could not have just been kept quiet, sort of falling under the table. I don't think so. And in reply to the second question by the Attorney General, yes, that is quite peculiar and unusual. If Slawik knew about it, I should have known about it all the more, because the matter must have circulated as a rumor among all people. But since I did not learn about it, that is the reason why I said that there are still people today who can give exact information about this, who the military judge was, what the judicial authority was. This can all be investigated today.
Dr. Servatius, have you any question in a re-examination on the same subject?
No, I have no further questions, says Dr. Servatius.
President of Court, thank you.
Dr. Servatius,
did I understand correctly that the accused has no more witnesses or documents which he begs to submit to court or to bring before the court in his defense, right?
Nein, das Vorbringen ist abgeschlossen.
Dr. Servatius, no, we have completed our case.
President of Court, if so, the defense completed its pleadings.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hausner, I beg to inform, I have two proofs which I cannot bring here as rebutting evidence. I only beg to bring this information to the court, and the court may call upon the witness. Attorney General, I am not privileged to call upon this witness as a rebutting witness. The court may do so. Attorney General, I have an affidavit made by Dr. Rudolf Werber, which came to my hand only yesterday. This in connection with document number 4, our document number 4, which we tried to submit to court. This is the report about Auschwitz, written in the year 1944. President of Court, I apologize. There is something I have to complete in the court record. One moment, please.
לא הכנסנו מודל או...
זה באיזה מקום? President of Court, you were speaking about Dr. Werber's affidavit. Mr. Hausner, yes, Dr. Werber's affidavit, made on the 18th of July, 61 in London. President of Court, reached you just now. Mr. Hausner, yes, reached us just now. And Dr. Werber relates his functions in Auschwitz. Amongst other things, he was also dealing with a registry, the way and the means how he arrived to the figure of victims mentioned in document number 4, which we tried to submit to court, and the defense objected. The court may recall. Dr. Werber gives all details and explains how he came to his figure and why this figure is correct. He explains how he calculated the possibility of mistakes, plus minus 10%, not more than that, as well as how he came to the sum total of Auschwitz victims. His figure is 2.5 million. Auschwitz only. According to the rule of evidence, I could submit this document had it been something entirely unexpected and unknown to me. But this I do not argue, because I knew about the existence of Dr. Weber, only I tried to submit his report the way all other reports were submitted to court. There was an objection by the defense, and then it was proposed by Dr. Halebi that I refer to Dr. Weber, and these are the results of my writing to Dr. Weber. Inasmuch as it is interesting to lay down the figure of victims, and this I believe is of interest to this case, the document is important. It goes on to explain one of the documents already submitted to Nuremberg court, because the last page of our document 4 was part of a document submitted to the Nuremberg courts.
President of Court, which document?
The 2 pages containing the calculation and how the sum total of victims was arrived at.
President of Court, but now we do not have these pages as an exhibit.
No, they are not in the file of the court, but they are included in this affidavit.
In President of Court, in this particular affidavit?
Yes, Your Honor.
It is an affidavit which was given to the Israeli consul in London?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe I am not permitted to ignore the document. I must inform the court that this document exists, and also call attention of the court to the jurisdiction which the court may apply and accept the document. It is paragraph 21 of criminal procedure, trial upon information, that at any stage of the process the court may require the submission of any evidence, and I request the court to use this jurisdiction and accept the affidavit made by Dr. Weber in evidence. This affidavit, in fact, only explains document number 4.
Herr Präsident, ich habe diese Urkunde noch nicht zur Kenntnis bekommen. Ich weiß daher nicht, was darin steht. Aber nach dem Vortrag des Herrn Generalstaatsanwalts scheint es ein wichtiges Dokument für eine historische Abteilung zu sein, aber nicht mehr für das Gericht. Ich kann dazu überhaupt nicht mehr Stellung nehmen. Ich müsste Nachforschungen anstellen, und in diesem Augenblick des Verfahrens bitte ich, das Dokument zurückzuweisen.
Dr. Savatius, Your Honor, Mr. President of the Court, I have not yet seen this document, and therefore I do not know what it contains. However, from what the prosecutor says, this is a document of significance to a historical investigation, but not for this trial. For that reason, I cannot comment upon it, because I would have had to carry out an extensive investigation, which I cannot do at this stage. For that reason, I beg to request that this document be rejected and not admitted in evidence.
Mr. Hausner, in order to put the very facts before the court, Mr. Bach handed a copy to Dr. Savatius of this document last night.
החלטה מספר 69.
99. We were requested to apply our jurisdiction according to paragraph 41 of the criminal procedure, in brackets, trial upon information. And paragraph 15 of the law against Nazis and their collaborators, 1950, to admit in evidence at this stage, after the conclusion of the pleadings by the defense, on the initiative of the court, Dr. Wirba's affidavit. Dr. Wirba lives in London, and in this affidavit details in regard to the number of the victims killed at Auschwitz. As explained by the Attorney General, these numbers are known to Dr. Wirba since Dr. Wirba stayed at Auschwitz camp for 2 years. The defense objected that the court apply this law. We are not ready to resort to this exceptional jurisdiction in order to admit a written affidavit from a man who could have appeared in court and testify. Had the prosecution believed that Dr. Wirba's testimony is of such importance to justify his being called to court, especially considering that statistics from such a source may perhaps throw light on this question, but cannot give a final and conclusive answer to the question. As far as the Czechoslovak book, here was literature out of which the Attorney General requests to submit certain passages. We shall permit the passages where the children brought to Kushtovo are concerned, and this may be regarded as rebutting evidence to N19 submitted by the defense in the same matter. This we do in accordance with our jurisdiction, paragraph 15 of the law against Nazis and their collaborators, 1950. And in connection, it must be pointed out that affidavit N19 itself contains matters which may be considered as hearsay evidence. The directives for work, the reprint of 1934, will not be admitted at this stage of the trial, since this should have been submitted by the prosecution in good time if they are of importance. The affidavit by Alois Steiger, N19, to which the Attorney General wished to bring rebutting evidence, Mr. Revers. This matter was already settled by consent of both parties after Dr. Savatius agreed that the court do not rely on what was said on page 3 in regard to Becher's activities in connection with deportation to Bergen-Belsen. My colleagues, Judge Rove and Dr. Halevi, signed this decision. That
This was signed by myself and by Dr. Rave. Here now is the separate opinion of Dr. Halevi.
the report by Dr. Freudiger, and when the Attorney General wished to submit this to court, before conclusion by the prosecution in session 72, the defense objected, the learned defense objected to the last part, summing up the number of victims at Auschwitz-Birkenau in the years 42 to 44, contending that this part of the report contradicts the first part of the same report. Just now, only yesterday, the Attorney General received an affidavit under oath from Dr. Wilber, one of the two who drew up this report, explaining this contradiction in quotes and to explain how the figures were arrived at and in connection with the number of those victims. I too believe that the learned Attorney General would have done better had he called Dr. Wilber to testify here before the court, and would not have saved expenses to the state, and this as a result from session 72. But I believe that the court should have resorted and used the power of jurisdiction in accordance with paragraph 41 of the criminal procedure and paragraph 15 of the law against Nazis and their collaborators 1950, to admit the said report, including the affidavit by Dr. Wilber, and if the learned defense so requires, to give him the opportunity to cross-examine Dr. Wilber. It is to be pointed out that this evidence is connected directly with the responsibility to be borne by the accused, but seems to me important to set down the number of victims at Auschwitz-Birkenau. With this reservation, I consent to all other parts of the decision given by my two colleagues.
President of Court, in this case, what we still have to do is the submission of those passages from the Lidice book, which refer to these children which were in Puszkowo, is it? Puszkoczko? Mr. Hausner, Puszkow in German, Puszkowo, Puszczykowo in Polish. Mr. Hausner, I shall submit the passages where the fate of these particular children is discussed. Puszczykowo. And in German, Puszczykowo. President of Court, the book will be exhibit T1434. Of course, it is being admitted only subject to our ruling and the limitations set down therein. And the translation of the passage from the book will be exhibit T1433 in brackets A. I beg to correct myself. T1434 brackets A.
כן, הספר תו 1434. תרגום 1434
I repeat, therefore, the book will be T1434 and the extract will be T1434 brackets A.
אני חושבת שהייתי ואמרתי שיש קשר.
אין קשר. אחר כך.
טוב, בזה הגענו לסוף גביית ההוכחות.
We now come to the end of the evidence chapter in this case, and we come to the summing up. I understand that the Attorney General has something to say. Attorney General, my question and request is that we be given time to prepare our summing up, especially considering the length of the evidence given by the accused. We want to draw up charts and lists of the testimonies, which will also facilitate the work of the court and shorten the summing up. All this needs time, and as I said, when we went into chambers, we would be grateful to be granted to be given a longer period, but we do ask that the summing up be commenced on Thursday, the 3rd of August. President of Court, if so, may we also reveal that you will not be able to conclude your summing up until the end of the coming week. Attorney General, yes, this seems to be so. President of Court, I do not wish to press. Of course it is desirable that all this is concluded until the end of next week, because then Dr. Savatius will need a break to prepare his summing up. Mr. Hausner, this will be very difficult, extremely difficult, and the longer time we are given to draw up the summing up in our office, the more time will be saved by the court in session. President of Court, all right, what does Dr. Savatius have to say? We already discussed the matter in chambers.
Ich müsste dann, auch weil ich mein Plädoyer nun schriftlich einreichen musste, damit die Dolmetscher eine Möglichkeit haben, auch aus technischen Gründen 2 oder 3 Tage haben. Ich kann es noch nicht übersehen, ich werde es so kurz halten wie möglich. Das Plädoyer selbst wird verhältnismäßig kurz sein, was ich zu halten habe.
טוב, אבל שמענו פה בקשה לדחות עכשיו עד ליום חמישי בשבוע הבא.
President of Court, we heard here a request to postpone until next Thursday. Dr. Savatius, I understand that the summing up for the prosecution will take a number of days. If so, I need 2 or 3 days, and that too because I have to submit the summing up part in writing, so that the translators get the material. After that, my pleadings will not take long. I cannot say yet how long it will take.
Das ist, wenn man genau sieht, ist es mehr wie 7 Tage. Und man kommt nun durch das Plädoyer in das nächste Wochenende herein, sodass ich dann erst um den 9. herum plädieren könnte.
If we go into the matter, we see that this sums up to 7 days, and we reach the end of the following week, so that I can sum up somewhere around the 9th of the coming month. President of Court. We, in this case, do not reckon in days, but in weeks, so that we know that during that week we shall be able to conclude. One day more, one day less does not make much difference.
Wenn der Ankläger die Zeit braucht, ich habe keinen Anspruch.
If the prosecution needs this time, I have no objection. Then this will be the 3rd of August, President of Court. The court will adjourn for summing up until the 3rd of August, 8:30 in the morning.
המטרה העיקרית של השלושה במקום השניים שיהיה לאחר מכן.